most businesses in sort of jurisdictions where there's a different sort of regime of business management standards, which vary actually quite widely. If you're looking at the UK and Western Europe, you're looking at one set of standards. You're looking at Africa, you're obviously looking at a different set of standards.
Yeah.
So those things become pretty important, obviously. Those environmental factors, and they certainly were in that one example. I can remember, my mind's going back as I'm talking to you now about one of those companies that we spent a lot of time around actually. But so I just see if I can say latterly, since I retired, actually, I've had a couple of. The reason I actually responded to the request for this was it was interesting because at one of the businesses, I was invited actually to become a non-executive director of a small business, and I did my own due diligence on it. Actually, I sort of applied in a way. Well, I did apply my own experience from my PwC days to my own assessment of this business. Which was it was probably at a £2 or £3 million EBITDA sort of level. I would think it was in that scale. It's a UK-based business, and there I did essentially by talking to the manager and going through the numbers. I did it actually more as a feedback report on the financial substance and viability of the business. Actually, as more than due diligence for the client. It was more my personal due diligence really on the company.
Yeah.
But it was quite an interesting exercise to do actually. And actually, I concluded at the end of it I wasn't going to invest, so it helped me make a personal decision, actually. So.
Yeah. And so maybe just, I think it's appreciated that obviously in any kind of M&A process, there's a whole range of risks to take into account, operational, environmental, jurisdictional, all the rest of it. I think we are very narrowly focused on financial diligence and the sort of types of analysis that you could do to, one, make sure that the numbers are correct, and then assuming that the numbers are reliable at least, what do the numbers tell you about whether this is a good business or not? So maybe on the narrow topic, I think we're interested in kind of best practice when it comes to actually performing, the diligence process. And so I don't know if you have kind of general ideas as to best practice, or if it's worth talking through just some more stories where you've seen, you kind of seen things go wrong, and on reflection it was sort of there was something about the structure or the way it was performed that resulted in a
Well,
bad
I think
outcome.
one of the areas in the pure financial space, and actually I'm not sure you need to, I would say you have to be you can dismiss in a way the operational and strategic stuff, but I think the commercial link to financial is very important. I don't think you completely divorce the commercial assessment. Financial is sort of a consequence of commercial. It's sort of downstream from commercial, if you like. But within the financial space, I think one of the areas that tends not to be well looked at is things like is the treasury and the financial, some of the market risk issues around some of the treasury and funding activity, because you often, depending on the timing in the sequencing of the transaction, and the dependence you can put on internal audit, whether they have an internal. Some of these organisations may or may not have internal audit functions. Internal reliance on internal activity and in the sense of audit in particular. I'm thinking about I think that to the extent that you can rely on audits, whether it's external or internal, you need to understand the nature and the focus of the audit sort of process. I don't know how you look at audits. But you should be able to place a lot of reliance on, substantive audits, balance sheet audits, looking at the valuation of the balance sheet, putting numbers around the balance sheet. That's essentially what the final audit, the substantive data is all about. That's what the focus of audit generally is. So, the starting point, I think, it should really be a focus on the audit. What reliance can you place on the audit process, and what comes out of the audit?
And just on that, two things. One, have you ever come across a situation where you have realized that in fact you shouldn't be placing reliance on the audited accounts, i.e. for whatever reason your belief is actually that the audited accounts are materially incorrect?
Only if there's a significant change in the commercial activities of the organisation. I think this is where you've got to look at the commercial aspects and the environmental aspects. If there's been a fundamental shift in the core activity